Welcome to Idea to Investment, the podcast where we dig into the exciting world of entrepreneurship and investment. We tell the stories of the tech creators doing innovative work and the investors who back them up. Along the way, unveiling the fascinating journey from the birth of an idea to scoring crucial investment. We'll highlight the voices of entrepreneurs, showcasing their grit and creativity, all while gaining insight from the investors who believed in those dreams. Get ready to be inspired, stay informed, and stay tuned as we explore the awesome collision of ideas and investments.
Hi, my name is Asha Parker, and I'm CEO of Frontline Medical Technologies.
Sometimes technology fills a gap that can be life-saving. That is frequently the case in the medtech field, and that is precisely the case for Frontline Medical Technologies. Once again, here's Asha Parker with her pitch.
Frontline Medical Technologies has a device called the Cobra OS. Imagine somebody in a car accident, as an example, or military on the battlefield. If there's an injury to an extremity, like your foot or your hand, you can apply pressure and try to stop that bleeding. When it's in your torso region, so internal bleeding, for lack of a better term, in your abdomen region, you can't compress that and effectively stop bleeding. So that is the type of hemorrhage that our device seeks to control. It is a temporary measure because what you're doing is you're going to block the aorta, the main artery that carries blood to the rest of your body. So imagine you have an injury anywhere in your abdomen, you plug it basically above that injury site, and that does two things. You're going to make sure the patient doesn't bleed out of that site, and critically, you're going to make sure that there's blood supply to the brain and the heart. Your lower limbs can do without blood for a period of time and you'll be okay. Your brain and your heart are not so forgiving. That's where all the deficits come in. So we want to make sure that they're continuously perfused. Transport the patient to where they need to go, hospital, definitive care, and then you fix whatever's happening, and then you take it out. So it's a temporary measure to basically keep them alive. A crazy statistic for trauma is that 90% of patients who suffer from that type of hemorrhage outside of a hospital won't even make it to the hospital. So wow. There's a large number of people that there's just, you can imagine, depending on the extent of the bleeding. Our device actually also, just in general, also attacks other types of emergency situations, such as postpartum hemorrhage. Women who give birth, 14 million women a year suffer from postpartum hemorrhage after birth, just by giving birth, and that is alarming. And our device actually helps with that as well. I won't get into all the applications, but in general, there are about 4 to 5 that we are targeting now, and this presents a large market opportunity. We can help so many patients worldwide. And we are looking at this not just from the technology perspective, but we're also trying to make it more accessible. It's more cost effective. It's the smallest, fastest, safest device available on the market today.
Okay, so a bunch of things I want to unpack there, Asha. And most importantly, I think, is just how incredibly life-saving this device is. Like, it literally is saving lives. So give me an idea of what did treatment look like before this? I mean, that statistic you gave me, 90% of people don't survive an injury like this. So what kinds of treatments would have been available pre-Cobra OS?
Yes, great question, Ken. So two things I'll say. In my market research for this, I went and talked to people who do, pre-hospital care, and every single one of them was like, we're grabbing anything we can from the ambulance, from around us. You're trying to make something work, and even though it doesn't effectively stop, you're going to try to compress, you're going to try to do things, and there just wasn't a tool. However, if you were part of the 10% that made it to the hospital, that's where, or if you had access to some sort of definitive care, basically the hands of a surgeon, what they would do before this was available is they would do a thoracotomy. So they crack your chest, they would physically make their way to your aorta, and they would put a clamp on the outside of it. So what we're doing is we're going from the inside and we're blowing up the balloon, same thing. It's just minimally invasive. So now no one's cutting you open, making like and putting an external clamp on. It's like an internal clamp that can be deployed in the field.
Okay, I don't want to get too graphic for a
Yeah,
podcast, but when you
yeah,
say we're going from the inside, it's minimally invasive.
yeah.
How exactly are we? What are we talking about here?
Yes, so it's actually it's like a pinhole needle, for lack of a better term. It goes through the femoral artery in your groin. That's the only access point, and you literally thread the device up. That's it.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
incredible. All right, let's back up a little bit
Yeah.
here and maybe get to the kind of origin story of Coburn.
Yes.
In fact, let's back up even further and talk about you and your what's your background?
Yes. Happy to talk about that. My background is biomedical engineering. I actually did my studies, my PhD right here at Western University. So yes, London is definitely home now. And from biomedical engineering, I did a medical innovation fellowship, and that was what really kind of gave me, a sense of this whole kind of world. Never did I imagine that I would be starting a company at that point. I went on to do another postdoctoral fellowship in clinical neurology from there. Just I wanted to learn a bit more about the brain. I knew I wasn't going to plant roots, but that was a learning experience. And it was during that year. So I met my now business partner, Dr. Adam Power, who's a vascular surgeon here at Vic. I met him during the Medical Innovation Fellowship. We kept in touch and we're working on a couple of projects. So, everyone kind of goes their own way. And so the following year is actually when we were working on this device. This is when we invented this device. So, and then there was a program in London where you can get some funding to work on projects. And I was like, hey, like, why don't we see if we can, put something towards it and, get something behind it. And we got the funding. And then we're like, okay, you know, like, are we really going to give this a go? Like, maybe we should really try. And that's when we made the decision to really focus on this device, and that's when I went full time. I decided to, not pursue um, anything else and kind of take the entrepreneurial route. And we said we knew that we were okay for 1 year. We said we have enough funding to get us through 1 year. It's like if it doesn't work by then, hey, like I'll go find another job. Like that's fine. like, but if it does, hey, and honestly, Ken, we haven't had to look back. It's been really great. So
That's
it was
beautiful.
like, hey, let's see if this works. And like it touch wood, it has been really amazing.
So was it Adam's experience as a vascular surgeon that kind of led to, him recognizing that there was this serious
There was a
gap in treatment?
problem. Absolutely, because he was a general surgeon before he specialized in vascular as well. And so definitely saw the need. Like, I think there are probably many unmet clinical needs, but that is one of the things that we probe at in the Medical Innovation Fellowship as well. But also, Adam, he must have been an engineer in his past life. I always say, like, he's very has that mindset, and so I think there's something to recognizing when there's an unmet clinical need and then, working towards obviously a solution. But yes, it absolutely was his experience that, where he could literally see that there's a gap, like there's not something that's really good for this patient population.
So, what's the market like? I mean, obviously there are few treatments like this, but are there similar technologies, or are there competing technologies?
Yeah, great question. There's one main competitor in North America. I'll tell you in general, there are very few. This is a field that is still booming. So it's really exciting because it's not like it's in a market that's been there and like which is great as well, but it's not, like there are not heavy roots and lots of big players and all of that. But it's skyrocketing. So that makes it very fun and exciting and also very unknown, but keeps us on our toes. So there's one main competitor in the US, but there are like just a handful worldwide, like literally, that are doing anything similar. Um, are like, I think I mentioned this already, but the big difference for us is that typically when you're trying to make these devices and use them, they have not been able to make them small enough that there's not further injury to the patient from the
Hmm.
device. We actually like flipped this type of technology on its side. Like we did not take the, let's just take this and try to make it smaller. We actually redesigned it and were able to get it down to something called, there there are French sizes for like these for basically these types of devices. It's basically the diameter of the tube. And the smallest sheet that was available before us was 7. And we brought it down to 4, which is nearly half the
Mhm.
size. And yes, and that actually affords us, so we're smaller, huge difference. We're faster, so, imagine every second counts when you're bleeding out. So, we, in our first in human study, we had an average of 70 seconds. In general, it's like maybe on average for a good controlled setting, 10 minutes to gain control.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so we have size, we have speed, and we also change the design in ways that there are safety features that are not available anywhere else. So we have an something to prevent overinflation. So if you imagine somebody blowing up a balloon in your artery, you don't want them to unintentionally put too much in it. And so the way we designed our device is that you can, again, I won't get into too many details here, but you can overinflate it and you'll never harm the artery. Eventually, if you put like 10 times as much, which hopefully doesn't ever go that far, the balloon will burst, but that's about it. So
Hmm.
um yeah, and there are a few other things, but in general, they're definitely, and I know obviously I'm not biased at all, again, but there are no competitors. There's nothing like ours on the market. Yeah.
I think it's healthy to be biased. You should be biased.
Yeah.
You should be proud.
Yes. Us.
Uh,
Yes. Yeah. I think you can't help it. We
Absolutely, it's
all
your
we
baby.
all love our own. Exactly. I was gonna say we all love our own babies, right?
So I think it's interesting, that you mentioned when you got that initial funding and you thought you'd give
Yeah.
it a year, and
Yeah.
you just have not looked back.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. I
Yeah.
mean, every startup knows that they're going to run into challenges. I'm sure you've had some throughout this
Yes.
journey. Clearly
Yes.
some that you have overcome, but what would you say was the major challenge for you over the course of this journey?
Yes, I'm touching wood a lot here because I have to say I feel like we've been fairly fortunate, but of course it's not, there's the ups and the downs and there's learning curves for everything. You know, the biggest thing, obviously, when we said we can get through 1 year, it's because of funding. You can't do anything without money. Like even if we wanted to and carry on, like you can't. Like you have to have that funding. And so that was, again, when we talk about this in further detail, you'll see it wasn't like a hurdle that was hard to overcome, but that was probably like the first thing that we were like, okay, we need to make sure we have enough funding to carry this through because, as you may know, for in life sciences, med tech specifically, and we have a long path to market. So we can't make this thing and start selling it tomorrow. We need to get regulatory approval. We have to have quality systems in place. We need to, and that takes a long time depending on the class of your device. But so we had to, well, I shouldn't say we had to, but mine and Adam's view was if we're going to do this, we need to make sure we're set up well. We don't want to, and so we made it our goal to make sure that we had enough funding to get through regulatory testing. Of course, these are all projections at this point, but it was like at that point, but it was, we said we don't necessarily want to embark on this journey because it's a big commitment to get all of these approvals for a class 2 device and, not know whether you can carry it through. And not to mention life decisions of not, putting like literally this is your everything. So we did that. And so the great thing, again, really, really great, was that we had and still do have great access to end users of our device because Adam's a vascular surgeon. And so his network and, everyone. And so actually what triggered how we did it was some of the vascular surgeons were like, hey, how do we invest in your company, when they heard about what we were doing?
Wow.
And it was like, oh my God, this is actually an amazing story, because when we approach other people and they know that end users are buying into it, if you don't understand the space very much, well, the people using it definitely see the value. So that was a big part of how we, got started. But we decided to do a SAFE round, if you've heard of SAFEs.
No,
So
go for it.
it's an acronym for a simple agreement for future equity. So it's a little bit even harder to usually sell because it is used in medtech a lot, but because you're basically saying, give me your money now, but I'm not going to give you equity until later. So, similar sometimes in some ways to like convertible notes or convertible debts, but there's no
Sure.
interest. And so basically you sign an agreement, they give you the money up front, and then at some event, whether it's an equity raise or another transaction, that's when it gets converted to. And so typically there are a lot of upsides for these people that go in early because they're taking the risk. We like a cap, so they make sure that you're not going to, like it's not going to be super high and they won't get a lot, and they get a discount. We had no cap. We did give them a discount because we thought, they are taking the risk, but we were able to raise more than what we needed at that time. And then, yeah, we just had private investment. We did not go the angel route. We did not go to VCs. Again, we were trying to keep things a little closer to home at first,
Mhm.
and still kind of seeing how things go. But, we were very fortunate to do that.
Yeah, really, I mean, it sounds like you just didn't need to go the angel investor route.
And yeah, I mean, everyone's path is different. So, like I think you obviously know this, you talk to lots of people. It's like there's no right way of doing it. For somebody else, angels may be perfect. For somebody else, a VC may be perfect. It's like it's not what we did, and it worked for us, but it may not work for everybody.
I mean, it helps when you, as you mentioned, you can go to an investor, or better yet, have investors come to you because they can actually see it in action. I mean,
That's right.
when it comes to making a pitch, man, this one just seems like a lock. This is something
Yeah.
that can return your investment and can save some lives while we're at it. Like, how does it get easier than that?
I have to say, like, and again, I know we're fortunate in this regard, but it is true. Like, it is a life-saving device. Like, who doesn't want to be involved in that? Like, I can't say we've ever talked to somebody that didn't want to, like it's like, of course you want to be involved in that. Like because, and that's something that, I mean, it's what drove us from the very beginning, both out, is the impact. The impact that this could have. And, and back then it was the potential because it wasn't even on the market. And now yeah, it's pretty incredible.
I want to change tack just a little bit and talk about your experience,
Sure.
specifically your experience as a female operating
Yes.
in the tech space. Give me an idea of in particular what the med tech space is like for a female entrepreneur.
Yes, I'm happy to say that there are definitely a growing number of females. Um, and so that's positive, but it's definitely still male dominated. So, I would say, again, obviously, I try to surround myself with people who are very supportive in every regard, and there's that. But I'll say, like, I still go to meetings where I'm the only female. I still go to meetings where, it might be a little harder to feel like you have a voice. I'm not shy, if you can tell, so I generally try to speak up. And I think, but it definitely does happen, and I think there have been times when you feel it a bit more than others. But I my my way of thinking is, okay, like, you can't necessarily control whether it happens or not, but what you do with it is what you can control, right? And how you react to it, and how what you take from that. And that's great that that happened. Like, you continue forward, you continue to be, your powerful self, and your go and that's where my head goes when the few times that I've had to deal with anything.
That's a
Yeah.
fantastic attitude, and I think that attitude goes a long way to making change. Do you think, I
Mhm.
mean, how do you think we affect change when it comes to having more women in the tech industry?
Yeah, great question, Ken. I've had several discussions about this, as I'm sure you can imagine.
I'll bet.
Yes, because, you know, not just in the med tech entrepreneurial space, but engineering is a very male-dominated field. So I came from one, and it's still in this, and that's still my field, but like, the business world and the engineering world both presented that. And so when I talk to younger females, I often will give talks, and I mean, it can be from elementary school to high school to undergrads to grad students. And um, I think that a lot of them just need to see that there's that opportunity. So we need to just make that very clear, available, open information, which, again, I think there are a lot of great initiatives out, as I'm sure to try to push the female side of things, because it's been in deficit for so long, I would say. But I think there's something about the early age, which I don't want to get too into the weeds here, but you know, there's something about the mentality of how we are as children as well, how we're brought up, what we're exposed to, and all of those things contribute to how we see that as we get into these times in our lives where we make these decisions about
Mhm.
what we want to do, what roles we want to, I don't know if I'm answering your question. I'm kind of going on a tangent here,
No,
but
no,
it's like,
it's a perfect
yeah,
tangent too, because
yeah.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think this
Yeah.
relates to your position perfectly because the more outspoken and the more visible someone like you can be to that younger generation,
Yeah.
because I think it's very important for those young people to see someone perhaps like
Like
them
them.
in a
That's right.
position
Yeah,
where you are, and
that's
then they can perhaps visualize themselves in that same position years later.
yeah. I will say, and you touched on something that like, part of why I do give these talks and continue to try to mentor, females, is that, I mean, one, it's giving back. I want to open that visibility. I want to, let them see other options for what they can do, or just have somebody to talk to. But when the impact that that has, when they come back and say, oh my gosh, I heard you talk at this place, and I just wanted to tell you, like, it inspired me to do this, or I've done this, and I keep in touch with, like, that is a different type of impact, right? Like, there's the technology impact of saving lives, and this is like a different feeling. But I would say, just as important, because that is something that's important to me. And um yes, I will say, I do think I do hold that in high regard.
Mentorship is huge. having someone to talk to who has gone through these experiences before you and can offer that advice, that's enormous. So it's great that you're providing that, but who provided that for you?
Uh, Great question. I heard it coming, and I was like, I
I mean,
can't say that I had. I know.
if the answer is nobody, that's cool too, right?
No, it's a funny answer because they're males.
Okay.
They're
That
not female. So I would say I like that side of it was it was I definitely have two amazing male mentors who have really guided me through my med tech, experience and growing into this role. They're obviously not females, but I think they're both very in tune with that as well. And, they're appreciative and can understand those things as well. So
Mhm.
I don't have like a female like person that I kind of had that, but I don't know. I will say this, I didn't feel like I was missing it. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, it's probably difficult to find, as you said, in an industry that is still pretty male dominated.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, we've been talking for a while here. I
Yeah.
do want to eventually wrap this up at some point, but it's been so much fun
Yes,
talking to you.
yes, you too.
What's the long-term goal for Frontline, or specifically, what's the long-term goal for Cobra? Is it to have it as kind of the gold standard for treatment of abdominal traumatic injuries?
Absolutely. I would, and our our the ethos of our company, as I was saying, is really about that impact and saving patients. That is definitely for the trauma, like you were saying, hemorrhage, but also in the other applications. So postpartum hemorrhage, there's non-traumatic cardiac arrest, which we didn't talk about at all, but and these other ones. But I would say yes, it would be amazing if the Cobra was the go-to for every time somebody had that. Like, every time somebody suffered from this situation, they grabbed the Cobra. So, we want to just get it out as far and as wide as possible. And it's not, I mean, obviously we're a business, but we don't say use it everywhere as in every single time. It's like you have it as a tool.
Mhm.
That's all we say. It's a tool in your toolkit. And if you need it, take it out. Like just but you have to have it there because it's not something you can order when you need it. It has to be lined on the shelf and there for the patient to benefit and for whoever's using it, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, we just want to get it out there.
Spoken like a true entrepreneur. You don't have to use it, but you should buy it.
Yes, I definitely heard that side of it come, but it's true, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
True.
you cannot
Yeah,
argue with it.
you
Uh,
can't.
all right. So I do like to end
Yeah.
with the same question for everybody. It's kind of a fun one. If you
Okay.
could go back in time
Yeah.
to the very beginning, before this all began for you, if you could time travel back and tell yourself something from the future, what would you tell young Asha? And how far back would you go?
Oh, I was going to ask you that. How far back do you want me to
You can go
go?
back as far as you want. You can go right back to like grade school and say, forget about that Bobby kid. He's a dud. Well, whatever you want to tell yourself.
I would I would go back to before Frontline. I'm not going to go back that far, but I will say that was a pretty life-changing moment for me. So I'm going to choose that. And I would say hammer home the message that everyone pretty much says, but there will be ups and downs. And, but keep your eye on the prize. Just keep going, which I would say I think we've done. But there are a lot of unknowns, and I think that um maybe having some reassurance at that point, which we didn't have. I don't think anyone can have that until you've actually gone through it. But I would that is kind of the point where I would say I took a big leap of faith. So, I would probably try to reassure myself at that point. I don't even know if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, you answered it perfectly, and
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Asha, it's been an absolute joy talking
Oh,
to you and learning about this amazing technology and learning
thank
about Frontline
you.
Medical Technologies. I wish you all the success in the world, and thanks again for talking to me.
Thank you so much for having me, Ken. It's been a pleasure, and look forward to chatting again sometime soon.
My absolute thanks to Asha Parker, CEO of Frontline Medical Technologies, for joining me. Idea to Investment is made possible by Tech Alliance. Learn more about the resources available to startups by going to techalliance.ca. I'm Ken Eastwood. Thank you so much for joining me.